Football on Off the Ball.
With William Hill, you can boost your winnings on the Sunday game with new Bet Builder Extra. Only with William Hill. Download the app today. 18 plus gamblingcare.ie.
This is News Talk.
All right, season 2 of Who You Got. Welcome along. Kathleen's here to take her victory lap after winning the Euros. Prediction? Oh, yeah, pretty happy with that.
I am very happy with myself, I have to say.
Was it close in the end? I was away for the end of it, so.
Well, because it was the Euros, I think it was a lot closer than the Premier League because you obviously didn't have as much time to kind of build up a lead in the way that Colin managed to do. But it doesn't really matter what the difference was. All that matters is who's on the top of the table, and that was Kathleen McNamee.
Well, congratulations, well done. Phil, you blew the biggest lead we've ever seen in a title race since basically, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think.
The only lead we've ever seen in this.
But like, I'm trying to compare it with real title races where somebody streaked ahead, looked absolutely dominant.
Newcastle?
Basically.
Yeah.
Kevin Keegan's Newcastle.
I was slumped over the advertising hoarding after one of the games. Yeah, Colin, I was sure that him getting the right results was going to run out. I kind of just thought whoever gets the most scores, or not, like who picks the right team to win, is going to, like, it'll even itself out. But he just kept pulling them out of the bag, like, and I just couldn't claw it back then.
Yeah, so we give a point for every correct result.
Yeah.
As in win, lose or draw. But then you get the correct score, you get supercharged, super bonus points.
Yeah.
Colin was Steph Curry, essentially. He was just popping three-pointers throughout the season.
Yeah. Goals win games, you know.
Yeah, Steph Curry is pretty good. Owen and John Duggan have also joined, so we have a bigger pool of people, which means hopefully I can finish as close to the middle as I did last year. I'll be very happy with that.
I'm slightly worried about John joining. I feel like he's going to take it even more seriously than we obviously already do and put proper thought and prep work into his picks every week.
It's all vibes here, Kathleen.
But then sometimes it's the randomness of football that makes it. That's why we play the games. This week we have 4 fixtures for you. Brighton, Manchester United, Spurs, Everton, Liverpool, Brentford, and the big game of the week, which is undoubtedly Villa against Arsenal. So we're going to start with Villa against Arsenal. Nothing to do with the fact that I'm a Villa fan, and Villa are going to crush Arsenal this weekend.
Oh, fighting talk straight off the bat.
Looking forward to it. Not many people siding with the home side. So I am. Mick is. The two Villa fans. Colm has a draw. Who else have draws? Shane and Will down the bottom have draws, 1-1 or 2-1. But then everybody else is routinely going for an Arsenal win. Owen, the Arsenal fan. John, the Spurs fan. Kathleen, the Arsenal fan. Nathan and Phil. So you're the only one who is relatively honest broker in all this, Phil, and you've gone for Arsenal to win?
Yeah, I think it is by far the game of the weekend. Obviously, you could argue that this is what lost Arsenal the title last season, losing to Villa twice. But the thing about both games was it's not as if Arsenal played bad. Villa were brilliant at the Emirates in the second half. They beat City at Villa Park, and then they had Arsenal a few days later at Villa Park, and they kind of approached those games very differently, where they absolutely schooled City. Like City barely got a kick at the ball.
It was the best performance that Villa have put in my lifetime.
It was incredible.
They were astonishingly good.
If you remember how you felt after that game, and then they kind of approached things a bit differently, got their goal against Arsenal, a 1-0 win against the Arsenal, give them a bit of their own medicine, and you were thinking, you know, this is Villa's season. They're gonna win the league. But look, Champions League, and they were very impressive, I thought, against West Ham last weekend. But I think Arsenal, there's so much pressure on them though, because you know how relentless City are, that you can't drop points. I know City dropped points in this fixture last season as well, but you just feel that if you're going to beat City over a season, you have to get out of the traps quickly. And Arsenal did that a couple of seasons ago. They couldn't finish the job, but they obviously are a better team now. So I just fancy them tomorrow to kind of make
to come out and have some revenge.
Bit of a statement, yeah. Just that defence holds firm, and then they take their chances.
I'm trying to find the team sheet for Villa against City. So I actually think what happened, Villa played really well against Arsenal, beat them in that second game during the middle of the title run, but then effectively played a very much weakened side against
the midweek game,
and lost 4-1. Phil Foden scores a hat-trick.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are you doing? Why didn't you put out the best team? But anyway, he knew what he was doing. They still finished 4th. And they're in Champions League football this year. And they're playing some of the best football to watch in the Premier League as a supporter. It's really exciting because it's heart and mouth levels of passing around in your own 6-yard box, and they're brilliant at it.
Yeah.
It almost never backfires,
Yeah.
almost.
And then the high line as well, just for a bit more risk.
It's wild.
But that winning goal last week was superb.
Yeah.
Like the ball from Pau Torres, the touch from Madsen.
Torres, beautiful, beautiful
And then
man.
Big John Duran. Nearly a West Ham player.
Could yet still be. There's still 8 or 9 days left for
And he's still got to celebrate at West Ham.
Yeah.
As it worked out.
Yeah. So, but why, in terms of how the teams match up, you don't think there's anything that Emery has against Arteta?
Well, he obviously has a bit of, there's a bit of a kryptonite thing going on there. But I just think that eventually Arsenal will get it right. And I think tomorrow is the day. It's not as if they didn't create chances in both those games. They had a goal disallowed at Villa Park. So I just think that they slightly edge it.
Okay. You're confident?
No, because of how last season went. But I think, as Phil was saying, for me, it's a mentality win. It's if Arsenal go out and if they are able to get over the demons of Aston Villa and what those losses meant to us last season, it's a good marker for how the rest of the season is going to go. I didn't actually watch the game last weekend because I was at Electric Picnic, but I watched the pre-season friendly against Leverkusen, and I know it's a pre-season friendly and there's only so much you can take from it, but it did feel like I was worried that the toll of last season would start to show on the team, because I wasn't totally sure in terms of like the depth of the team, the injuries that they had. But they looked fresh, they looked confident, they looked happy on the ball. There was 4 different goal scorers, I think, on the evening. So I just think that if Arsenal are going to go on the sort of run that they need to this season, especially at the start of the season, they need to get a win against Aston Villa, because it means that Arteta can turn around and say to the players, this is why we're different to last year. This is why we're going to do it this year in a way we didn't. And like, look, there are plenty of other teams that they might fall to down the line. But in particular, I think Aston Villa is an important one to get over early doors.
I buy the logic of what you're saying. It's just that I think Villa were brilliant last week in a way that is going to give them a lot of confidence heading into this too.
And that's why I'm totally not confident in my prediction. It's as much a hope that this is what it's going to be as I've seen like the full matches and this is exactly what I expect to happen. But I do think, having seen bits and bobs of Arsenal over the last like couple of months in pre-season, that they have recamped in a way that I was worried that they wouldn't.
They were good.
Yeah.
There was patches of the game where they were coughing up chances which you would have expected a Premier League team to be able to score against them. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if it had gone to 1-1. But then
Equally, Wolves gave Saka way too much space during the game as well.
yeah, but Saka and Havertz was playing well. Like he's playing well as a striker, and if that happens over the course of the season and he scores 19 to 23 league goals, that's a massive improvement.
He might not even have to score that many, Ger. I mean, ultimately, if this is going to work out for Arsenal, they probably need 4 to 5 of their forwards to get into double figures. And there's no reason to think that Odegaard particularly, Martinelli, I think will have a better season than last season. And then if Saka, Jesus and Havertz can all get into double figures,
Trossard
they might,
as well.
and Trossard, they might create enough in the aggregate to make up for not having an elite number 9.
Yeah.
It's very rare that the team wins the Premier League without a top number 9. Though.
Or Havertz has found a confidence streak and is actually going to improve his conversion ratio. Like the goal last week was a very beautiful but very simple, I'm in the right position, Saka knows what I'm going to do because we've been together long enough. I actually played right beside him for the large part of the season, and so we'll see. Maybe they go out and sign a striker. And
Prefer Havertz playing in that position than where he played against the Villa game last year, where he was deeper and he was going around trying to be an enforcer and a hard man around the pitch. I think he's better using his technical ability further up the field.
Yeah. I think Arsenal might get into a bit of trouble though later on in the season if they are as reliant on Saka as they currently are. I just think the way he looked during parts of the Euros, and obviously since I won the competition I know exactly what I'm talking about, but just with the way he looked in certain parts of the Euros, I worry that the tiredness is going to set in because he played so many minutes over the last year. There's a really good piece actually about it in ESPN during the week about the minutes that every player has played, and his was like astronomical compared to a lot of others.
They are, you would say, more reliant than any of the other top teams on one individual, maybe Mo Salah's side and Liverpool, but it's at that level of absolutely, if he is slightly off this season or there's some kind of regression to a mean, and that mean is less than we thought it was. The other outside of that is that he is still a very young player and could become explosively one of the top 3 footballers in the world at the moment. You know, that's definitely within the range of outcomes for Saka.
Yeah, and I think when you watch him now as well, his game has developed where it's not always just about get the ball and go at your man, where that first goal was the perfect example, where he had space and he just said, I can cross the ball as well as anyone, and he's going to put it on Havertz's head for him. And that's how you do it. Don't always have to go 100 miles an hour, take on your defender.
And then the goal that he does score is actually kind of a carbon copy of many of the goals that we've seen him cutting in from the right and hammering it.
Yeah, I suppose you probably think, is he going to go for the far corner? And maybe and the fact
finish.
The fact that he goes the other side, maybe that's what caught Sa off guard.
Emi Martinez signed a new long-term contract. That's one of the low-level anxieties that the Villa fans had. Was like, they're cashing in on Emi Martinez and he'll go somewhere. The difficulty is that he can't go to France because everybody hates him there. Maybe he could go to Barcelona, but they're broke. Real Madrid have a good goalkeeper, so there's not that many places in the world that Emi Martinez can go. Man United, obviously, but that's now off the list. You've gone for a draw. It's a classic 2-2.
I feel like it's difficult to see. So I've gone for 2-2. I think it's going to definitely be a draw. My concern would have been, if this is a few weeks' time, I think this would be a really high-octane fixture. Just a general feeling I had from week 1 of the Premier League. Some good performances aside. I'm sure we'll talk about Brighton and how well they played against Everton. Villa played very well against West Ham. But outside that, a lot of the top teams kind of felt their way into weekend 1. So I'm not sure whether these teams are going to be at full tilt coming into the fixture on Saturday. And obviously they'll feel each other out to a certain extent because they respect each other, given how close the games have been between them in recent times as well. It's difficult to see Arsenal concede 2 goals. That's my only concern about the prediction.
I do.
1-1 could easily happen.
There's a lot of logic. I think I went for a 1-0 win because I don't think there's going to be many goals, and if there's a goal, I'm slightly favouring Villa. I'm obviously totally biased, but I had thought about a draw, and if it was going to be a draw, like, Arsenal don't concede really, and Villa do concede. They've conceded a lot of goals, but it feels like they have a better defensive mindset and structure in place. And that apparently we had Dan Bardell on during the week, and he was saying that they've been working very hard to reduce the number of games that they go behind in and then have to go gung-ho to try and rescue the situation. So, right.
Interesting to see what Arsenal do at left back, because it's not going to be Zinchenko. It can't be. Leon Bailey up against Zinchenko. If that's what I see in the team sheets, then can you put in for a quick change?
We should have a mulligan situation where we're allowed to change our once you see the team sheets. Now, we are doing something slightly different this year. Lee Phelps of William Hill is with us. Lee, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm enjoying listening to the debate over this game. It's intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I guess that's why we have markets. What we're doing this year, we've got a charity bet at the end. Whoever wins, which is probably unlikely to be me, but everybody else at least has...
Ger's yearning away already.
Harbouring some hopes for this. We're going to hopefully assemble a sizable amount of cash, and William Hill are going to donate that money to charity on our behalf. But we need to make good selections, Lee. So can you help us?
Yeah, well, the odds on this game, as we record right now, Aston Villa are 100-30 to win it in the 90 minutes. The draw is just under 3-1 at 29-10, and Arsenal are 4-5, so odds on. Now, a wise man once told me that if a team in the Premier League is over 3-1, then you should be looking at backing them. And I just think Villa at home, it's a decent price, isn't it? It wouldn't be like a huge surprise if Villa ended up popping up and winning again. They won 0, as you guys have been discussing, twice last season. You know, it's like, can Villa win this at 100-30? Don't think it's the worst price at all. I do like that score draw, though. I mean, I think the draw is a big player here. And like the score draw, just take out the correct score, the 2-2. The score draw is 18-5, so that could be a 1-1, 2-2, 3-3 or whatever. I take the point that I'm not sure Arsenal will concede enough goals for it to be high scoring. So if you like the 2-2, but you think, well, maybe it could be a 1-1, I think the draw in both teams to score at 18-5 looks to be probably the best way in. One interesting thing I like in the chat around Saka is that I've got this kind of like holy grail of bet builders in my mind. And it's what it is. You know, you all know what the bet builder is, obviously. You can put together an ACCA on a game from 2 to 8 selections. What I really like is trying to combine one player doing the goal, the assist, and the card. Now, you would think it doesn't happen that often. It happens more often than you'd imagine. Saka did it last week. He was booked, he assisted, and he scored. If he did that in this game, 55-1 that bet builder is. Right. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but like, for instance, last year in the 1-0 win for Villa, John McGinn was carded and he scored. if that happened in this game, 25-1. I'm just throwing it out there. It might become a running thing during this show this season. I'm on the lookout for those. And where we see a good opportunity, that's what I'm going to be talking about. But, I mean, from my point of view, I'd be going for the score draw in this game. I don't know what you guys think.
If John Duran makes it into the Villa team on a weekly basis, backing him to score and be booked, generally in celebrating the scoring of the goal, they're the type of players you want, who are ripping the shirt off, irrespective of the booking. They're going to take 10 bookings because they'll score 10 goals over the course of the season, and they'll be delighted with themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you get less of those now, but my theory behind it, and we'll get into this more, my theory is that when a player is on it, when they've scored, the adrenaline's pumping a little bit more likely, especially if it's an attacker, maybe to get booked if they're chasing the game as well. The assists and goals often flow between each other, especially a player like Saka. So like I say, we'll keep an eye on it. If it happens this week, I'm going to claim it, by the way. Even though I haven't put it up as a bet, I'll still claim it because I mentioned it. That's how it works on these things.
Exactly.
I gave it a mention.
You've managed to capture the essence of this show, where we after time quite happily. And,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, I'm very biased as a Villa fan, but I think maybe the score draw is the way to go for our charity bet this week.
I think so.
Yeah, I like it. 18-5.
Yeah. All right, Lee. Thanks for that. And just the point about these two teams meeting very early on in the season, like obviously Arsenal are many people's favourites for winning the league outright, and we don't think Man City are going to drop too many points. So does it actually ratchet up the pressure a little bit on Arsenal, as Kathleen was basically saying a little bit earlier on? They kind of need to win all these games early just to make sure that they don't let any gap emerge.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that is it. You're exactly right. Whether it's Arsenal, whether it's Liverpool, whoever's vying for the title with Man City, it's on you from day one. Because the thing is with Man City is that, as we've seen over the course of their 4 straight Premier League wins, they can have dips. It's just that ability to be able to put together a winning run at the right time, and it always seems to happen just after Christmas, doesn't it? It just seems like they go, right, okay, let's get in gear now. We've got kind of a little bit of a Champions League break until that returns in the new year, and then they just go on this run, and they don't seem to be able to be caught from that point on. But you're right. I mean, Arsenal are 7-4 to win the Premier League title this year. Man City are 11-10. They were cut a little bit after that first weekend, Man City, but they tend to stay favourites all the way through. I think there were maybe a couple of weekends last season where they weren't favourites, but then they get on that run. But absolutely, I mean, it's just whether you think Arsenal have changed enough. Can you trust Arsenal at odds on to go to Aston Villa and win?
I can't. I can't.
I can't. If I had to back either of the winning markets, I'd have to back Villa. But I think the draw is a big play.
One last question for you. How do bookmakers account for the potential for Manchester City to be deducted points? Is that priced into that price, do you think?
It's not really priced into the title market, but if you look at the relegation market, they're 9-1 to be relegated. So it's factored into that. And we're talking about Arsenal and Liverpool being 2,000-1, just to put that into context. So Man City 9-1 to be relegated, but they wouldn't be. Look, they may be a little bit shorter. Last year they were odds on to win the Premier League title at this stage. But they're not a huge price, obviously, because I guess it would change as that happened. People won't not back them to win the title because they might be deducted points. It's the other way around. People will back them to be relegated because they might be deducted points. So we couldn't put them out at 2,000-1 like Liverpool and Arsenal. But yeah, they were a little shorter last year. They were odds on for quite a while. But maybe again though, the fact that Arsenal have closed that gap last season, and that maybe the concentration on trying to win the Champions League again for City might take a little away from them. We'll find out, won't we?
So our charity bet this week is for the score draw in the Villa-Arsenal game, which is the Saturday evening kickoff. Lee, thanks a million for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
It's Lee Phelps from William Hill. And our winning bet, as we hope it will be, over the course of the season, there's a lot of pressure on us here to pick actually raise some money for charity.
Jared, the hive mind creates the pot, and whoever wins gets to donate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last team to beat City in the Premier League?
Aston Villa.
That game. And also, as we're sitting here, Gundogan is done. That's a done deal. So, last week when we were picking
we didn't know that.
We didn't know Gundogan was going to come back. And he's one of those players that when they put those runs together, he comes up with goals, big goals.
Don't know if they're going to get Furuhashi in eventually, but if they address the issue where they were definitely one midfielder short by bringing back in Gundogan, and if they get a backup striker that's going to hold fort until Oscar Bob is fit again, City look intimidating for the title.
Gundogan played very well for Barcelona last year.
He combined 18 goals and assists last season. He's only leaving because Barcelona can't get the money in. They're an absolute sham. But a lot of the money that they've been owed by companies for deals they've done haven't come. So they have a short-term financial issue now. Danny Olmo still isn't registered at time of recording for this weekend for their game against Athletic Bilbao. So,
do they make Chelsea look good, or is it kind of
I don't know.
Birds of a feather flock together. Okay, next game, Brighton Man United. Our picks here. Draw. It's 5 draws. 3 Uniteds at the end. Phil, Shane and Will, Mick and myself have gone for Brighton wins. We're on an island ourselves, Mick. Villa and Brighton. That'll be a massive double if it happened.
Brighton always seem to give a big club a bloody nose early on in the season. We remember Graham Potter had started well. Similarly now they've come in. That was a really good result at Everton. I wouldn't count that as like you're beating one of the big guns, but impressive to go to Goodison Park. Last time they're going to play it in the Premier League and come away with a very convincing 3-0 win last weekend. We know they've beaten Manchester United before at home and they've given the big clubs plenty of trouble. I wasn't entirely convinced by Manchester United's performance against Fulham on Friday. I felt it was really a case of job done. They needed Xerxes to come on to give them that little bit of extra edge up front. I don't know if this Mount and Bruno Fernandes, as you like to call him, double number 10 idea is necessarily going to work up front. But while Rasmus Højlund is out for a while, we'll see if Xerxes is now ready to start up front for them. Benefit being that I thought Mazraoui played very well at right back last week. There's a few little things that are kind of coming into place for United. Certainly their defence, when everyone is fit, is going to be a lot better than last season.
Is it definitely? Yeah,
I think so.
100%.
I think still, if you're going to have to rely on Luke Shaw being fit at left back, that's a problem.
Is the big thing there though not when fit? Because they haven't had any proper backline fit for like the entirety of the summer, and that's the time you're supposed to get your players back. And any of the pre-season games that they've played, at least one person, if not two, have become injured.
Down. Yeah.
And long-term injuries as well. It's not just like, you know, a bit of a tweak.
On the plus side, Casemiro looked reinvigorated last week. Now, how long that lasts for, you potentially have a very solid base with him and Kobe Mainoo. And then if that starts to click, they can work on the little things further forward and we'll see if they can actually catch fire. But last week I wasn't massively impressed by them, and that would be my biggest concern about them going to Brighton, much more so than what Brighton actually did against Everton.
Yeah, I think they pick Brighton off on the break. I think Brighton will do their usual. They'll have plenty of possession. They will create chances. They'll look good. They'll give United a lot of problems, but I think United will also give Brighton a lot of problems as well. Garnacho. I'm thinking Garnacho is the key to this.
Does Garnacho start, do you think?
Yeah,
I think he should.
You got to bring him in, yeah. Like they did create a lot of chances against Fulham. Like
they did. It should have been three or four. Like Garnacho at the end with the weird miss.
Yeah. Bruno Fernandes had chances, you know. Mason Mount had a good chance as well. So they didn't give up as many chances. Still gave up enough.
Plenty of 2-on-2s that happened during the game.
Yeah, and Brighton maybe could be more clinical than Fulham. But it'll be interesting. I think they're the two games I'm looking forward to most over the weekend, because you obviously factor in it's Hertzler's first home game as Brighton manager. And, you know, he'd be thinking what a nice way to start would be.
12:30 kickoff, Manchester United, back-to-back wins. Everybody's like, wow, the kid, he's amazing.
31, yeah.
Will Evan Ferguson have any kind of involvement this weekend? It was interesting that Vinnie Perth had been over to meet him last week. He said that was about 10 days ago. He'd been back in the pitch for 3 or 4 at that point. Welbeck has now started the season well. I wonder, will Ferguson be on the bench and potentially get some minutes in this?
Yeah, and that might be actually no harm for
the England game.
Evolution of his career, that there's a bit now of a pause in the massive amounts of hype, and he just starts to get minutes and becomes a seasoned week in, week out professional, understanding what the rigours of that are going to be like on his body.
Yeah, that's it. He has to stay fit.
So Brighton Man United 12:30 tomorrow is the kick-off in that one. Our next game is going to be more than likely Spurs Everton, I want to say. Yes, Spurs versus Everton. Everybody has gone for a Spurs win here. A routine 2-0, 3-1, 3-1, 2-0, 2-0, 3-1. Nobody's going for an absolute mullering. Sean Dyche obviously is going to bring the dogs of war out, and
he's going to put that caption on the screen in the dressing room. They don't have to. They don't put them on the walls anymore. Oh, Dyche might.
You might. Yeah. There might be. Print that out for me, will you? Yeah. What's a printer?
Yeah.
Does anybody give Everton a hope, a prayer in this game?
It's hard to make it.
Poor last week.
Yeah.
Good news is how poor they were. O'Brien might well come into defence. I think it's only a matter of time before he replaces Michael Keane.
Yeah.
Particularly after what happened last week against Brighton. It's a pity he's coming into a struggling side, but looks like he's probably going to be straight into that team. May even well play this weekend.
They were, and sorry, there's still speculation about whether or not their other central defender who's worth a gazillion euro might actually be joining Liverpool was today. That's not going to happen, is it?
Branthwaite going to Liverpool.
Can you do that?
No, Everton fans have enough issues with the ownership or what's going on at the moment. If they did that, I mean, then again, Farhad Mashiri's trying to get rid of the club.
So maybe he's like, I'm going to take my money, take that off the table, yoink, thanks very much.
Yeah,
Going to pay down some of my debts and get out of here. And sometimes I like to see the world burn.
It just feels like they've been dancing with the devil for so long, and are they finally reaching their last lifeline?
But that's their thing.
Yeah.
But it was Dyche's thing with Burnley, and eventually they got bitten.
They weren't bad last season at all.
No, they finished strongly, but they did a really poor
They
start.
started really bad.
Yeah.
Didn't win in their first 6, wasn't it?
And he managed to turn it around. So they are streaky is the one thing, and they're in a bad streak at the moment.
They'll be hoping as well, Jared, the 3 teams who've come up aren't going to be good enough to stay up. And they'll go straight back.
They also lost points last year.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
They were they would have been ninth without the points deduction or something.
Those streaks you talk about, they had a really good run around December where they won 4 games in a row, and then they finished really strong, which would have included the Merseyside derby win as well.
Yeah.
And they did have some unfortunately timed injuries as well in the middle of all that.
So, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that they batten down the hatches and frustrate a Spurs team who are a little bit flaky at the moment.
They weren't good against Leicester on Monday.
They were good in the first half.
But that's the thing. They were astonishingly good, I thought. And then really bad. What is going on here? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
We don't know the full extent of Porro's injury either. At the moment, we know Bentancur's probably going to be out for the season at this stage. So there are 2 blows straight away in week 1.
Have you any faith in Ange to build a team that finishes top 5?
Absolutely. I think they'll keep getting better. The age profile, it's about making sure he gets time to see it through. But you know that you have a few bad results and people start getting twitchy. I don't think Ange Postecoglou will. He's always quite assured on what he says. I think the one thing that seemed to really rub him up the wrong way last season was that Arsenal game, and how, when he was asked about not wanting to beat Arsenal and certain Spurs fans, that's when you could see he got really riled up by that.
The Spurs fans wanting City to do them over as well. There was a genuine feeling of, this isn't the way I do this.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I do think that eventually that could go either way, right? But if he manages to get everybody aligned, then we're going to look back at that as a turning point. But if they sack him in 8 weeks, which the stupid idiot who runs the place might actually do, then you'd be like, well, what are you doing this for? How do you, this could have been your guy if you just got behind him.
Yeah, and you don't sign players that he wants and then pack it in after a few bad results, and then you bring in a completely different manager that doesn't want to play that way.
Maybe it's naive thinking, but I don't feel like Spurs are going to get particularly twitchy over the next couple of weeks. I do think they're going to give Ange the time. There's the way that the whole crew in there, like Levy, has talked about him. It doesn't feel like other managers that have been in there. No. And it feels that they understand what he's doing for the club. And actually, I think even behind the scenes, he's doing a lot to rehab the image of the club, because I think a lot of fans became really disillusioned with the leadership, whereas Ange has been very good at getting out into the community and changing that side of things. So, and I also think you have to, when you lose a player like Harry Kane as well, you kind of have to give someone an opportunity to rebuild, because essentially it was a team that was built around, this is our best player.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to take a while to fill that gap. So, I don't know. Again, maybe naive, because I know how the Premier League managers
I think there's definitely a difference in the way they, if you lose a game with a manager like Mourinho or Conte, you've had to sit through that and watch it.
Yeah.
And you didn't win. If you win, the style of play kind of goes on the back burner slightly. But at least with Postecoglou, Spurs fans had a smile on their face, with, especially at the start of the season. They were like, this is unbelievable. We're getting out of our seats. It's breathtaking football. Obviously came unstuck towards the end of the season and didn't finish it strongly. But definitely Spurs fans would feel a lot better about having him in charge than going back to somebody who stylistically is completely different.
And he's finally had his chance to actually go into the market and properly get a number 9 in, which he wasn't able to do with the Harry Kane saga last summer. It's whether Dom Solanke is able to replicate last season's form.
Now, the Evening Standard are reporting today that Solanke wasn't pictured in the footage that they released from training during the week, and social media is aflame with so we'll see. We'll see. Spurs definitely not cursed. Right, was that our fourth game? No, Liverpool-Brentford. How could I forget? Again, one-sided. We've got this game live on Sunday afternoon for you on Off the Ball and Newstalk. Liverpool do need to win this game, and I would expect them to win this game. Are there any concerns about the first half performance being a bit limp last week against a team who lack quality?
Yeah, I think in fairness to Ipswich, they didn't lack energy, and that's maybe, you could see it obviously took so much out of them in the second half. Liverpool just took control. But yeah, look, my feeling on Liverpool now is it'll be very interesting to see what they're like if they go behind in a game. They haven't gone behind in a game under Slot. I know it's only one league game, but even the pre-season, it was all very, happy. Right. Everything's going well. You can see signs of what kind of football he wants to play, how it differs a little bit from Jurgen Klopp. But all it takes is just one bad result and all that negativity around the lack of signings. But Brentford are a more battle-hardened team in the Premier League than Ipswich. They do have threats on the break. Ivan Toney still hasn't gone. He's hardly going to play him, but Brian Mbomo is certainly a player I remember created chances at Anfield last season, didn't take them. Liverpool took their chances, so you'd still suggest, you still imagine they'll get the job done. And look, it's a big game for Slot because it's his first league game at Anfield. So he was asked about it at his press conference and he played it cool. He said, not nervous at all, I've got a good team around me, so we'll be all good.
Yeah, I buy it. He certainly comes across as somebody who's self-confident in his ability, and that's what you need to be to take the job after Klopp. But also, the end of last season wasn't great. It's you didn't want to be the guy after the guy, but actually
it fizzled.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, well, I think they kind of ran out of steam a bit, and that's probably where the lack of quality and the depth in the squad kind of caught up with them.
Yeah, he did also play his first team in Europe when they'd already won the first leg, which seemed totally egregious, and then complained about the fact he had to play. That there was some bad decision making at the end.
He looked tired as well at the end of the season. It wasn't just the team. You felt like even when you were listening to Klopp in his press conferences or his post-match interviews, he seemed tired, he seemed frustrated. You could understand why he was saying, I need to call it time now. I need to take some time to myself.
Imagine if this had been Klopp in charge this off-season and they'd signed nobody. There would definitely have been stories about rows with the
football
chief executive of football and the ownership, and there would have been comment from FSG saying, no, it's fine. We have very specific things that we're trying to get. And look, maybe they go on an extravaganza of signing over the next few days. And
don't think they will though, Ger. I mean, they've sold very, very well again this summer, so there's decent revenue coming in, especially you're selling players like Van der Berg, who were never going to be near the first team and sold for a decent profit.
Was he not? Is he not? One more season, keep him, and then you actually don't have Virgil next year.
Van Dijk will get a new contract.
Would he sign it though?
Depends how things go, but I think, I get what you're saying, Will, and they have done good business in selling, but you're talking about a club that has ambitions of winning the Premier League and
the Champions League.
Yeah, and you're thinking, should they be really, taking pride in the fact that they're doing well, selling things, because they need to start investing in the squad. And look, I know
if they got Zubimendi, it would feel incredibly different.
Yeah, and I get it. Sometimes it just takes one or two players to transform a team. And look, we've seen that it's always talked about with Van Dijk and Alisson. And it looks like they have their backup plan for Alisson. That's going to happen with Mamardashvili, the Georgian goalkeeper, who won't be there this season, but he'll be there next season. And Liverpool have had some horrendous goalkeepers down the years.
Yeah. So
when Alisson came in, it just reassured everyone. They were like, this place is safe now for the next.
He's a long way from
Adrian.
Bruce Grobbelaar. When did they actually have good goalkeepers? Ray Clements, was that the last good goalkeeper?
Pepe Reina had a good spell.
Pepe Reina was
he had a good spell, yeah.
He did, yeah.
But we are talking Karius and so on.
Historically, it's been an issue.
Karius in the Champions League final. I mean, that was horrendous.
By the way, I'd still be concerned that they haven't brought a 6 in. I realise why they want to stay for him, but last week even you saw that McAllister had to play outside of his normal role to basically accommodate for Endo not being there. That's fine when you play against someone like Ipswich, but if McAllister has to stand in there, you're both blunting his game and leaving yourself open as well. But it's interesting what happens to Darwin Núñez now as well, because it seems that Jota is very clearly the first choice through the middle. Did Núñez even get in the field last weekend?
No.
Kept
But
him on the bench.
he was late coming back from Copa America, and we know how that ended for him as well. And look, I think Liverpool fans love Diogo Jota, but the problem again is how fit will he stay?
Yeah.
So
Liverpool 4-1 on Brentford 10-1 to win that game. 11-2 is the draw on that one. That's this week's episode of Who You Got. We'll be back next week, same time.
Football on Off the Ball.
With William Hill, you can boost your winnings on every game with new Bet Builder Extra. Only with William Hill. Download the app today. 18 plus gamblingcare.ie.
This is News Talk.